Morning folks, I'm Dave Canterbury with Self-Reliance Outfitters in the Pathfinder School, and what I thought we'd do today is I shot a fairly long series not long ago on medicinal plants called Materia Medica, and I didn't quite exhaust all of the plants and trees that I wanted to include in that series, but it kind of got later and later in the year and other things came up. Trapping season came up, classes came up, travel schedules came up, and I didn't get a chance to quite finish exactly what I wanted to do in that series, but we'll get to it again next year and pick up where we left off for sure. But one of the things that I wanted to discuss in that series at the end of the series was what I call the Woodsmans Apothocary. And this is a concept that I came up with to be able to utilize common herbs and plants that had a lot of multifunctionality when it comes to treatments or treating common ailments that the woodsman may have in a base camp scenario for the shorter term. I'm not talking about overnight or a couple days. I'm talking about a week to 2 weeks. So it would be kind of a medicine cabinet that you could keep in your wall tent, your cabin, your hunting camp, whatever the case may be, and then you could replenish that kit from the landscape because you're using materials that are common to your area. Although they may be processed, so you may have to collect and process them ahead of time to replenish, but you've got some that you're starting out with already that are in a processed state to be used as a medicinal treatment. And it's a very small kit that I've come up with. It all fits in just a zippered canvas, waxed canvas pouch here. And this is not something that I sell. It's not something I have any plans to sell. It's something I wanted to discuss with you and kind of walk you through a little bit so that you might be able to set something up like this for yourself depending on the environment you live in, because the plants and trees that you have may differ from what I have here in Southeast Ohio. Now, one thing that I did take advantage of that you'll see in this kit is I stayed with that mentality of the trees being a four-season resource, and a lot of the medicinals that I'm using in here are tree type medicine, or what I call tree medicine, because those are easier for me to replenish or use on the fly in the eastern woodlands in all 4 seasons of the year. So let's kind of break this out for a minute and look at the contents, and we'll kind of go through it a little bit and how I've set it up as like an emergency first aid kit or a self-aid kit for a more permanent type camp or a medium term camp scenario. So what we'll do here is we'll do a very similar type video to, you know, one of my instructors and good friend of mine at Corporal's Corner, Sean Kelly, what he calls a junk on the bunk. And we'll just lay this stuff out here on the cot and we'll talk about it as we go. So again, I've just got a zippered canvas pouch, and this pouch came off Amazon for about 11 bucks. And one thing that you're going to have in any kind of a kit is you're going to have a way to measure things, unless you're just going to do it on the fly by handfuls, pinches, dabs, and things like that. So what I chose to use was Kupilka measurement systems because it's something that's easy, something that I had already within my kit, and I could store it in here and it wouldn't take up a lot of room. And I've got a Kupilka gill cup and a Kupilka spoon. So those are kind of the measurement system that I use with this stuff when I'm making a medicinal infusion or decoction or whatever I'm doing. And then I've also got several things in here like reusable canvas tea bags, because these can be used not only to make medicinal infusions and things like that and decoctions without having to strain them off, but they can also be used as a basis for a poultice by putting the plant inside this after it's been cooked or after it's been prepared, and this can be used as a dressing or a poultice over the top of something and then bandaged on with a piece of cotton bandage or cotton t-shirt material. I also have a couple larger ones in here that can be used for anything from a millbank type bag for straining material to storing or collecting material, and also to cooking material in larger quantities in a larger pot in camp. Now, what I've done is I've made a little list here, very similar to what you'd have in some type of a self-aid or first aid kit that you would buy, that kind of is a reminder for me, but it also lets other people know that might be using this kit. If I were to get sick or injured and somebody else were using this kit, they could open this set of instructions up, and it would kind of give them a very good clue as to what to do with the contents of this kit. And basically it has a list of the condition. So you have bleeding, breaks and strains, bites and stings. Again, we're talking about common ailments. This is more self-aid, immediate stuff. This is not for long-term illnesses. Constipation, diarrhea, stomach upset, immune system boosters, sore throat, cough, sleeplessness, headache, fever, and on down the line, all the way down to antiparasitics and antivirals. And then it goes into what plants work well for that, what trees work well for that. Anything. Well, I've got an other column here, and my other column we'll talk about in a minute, because there are basically a couple of other containers within this kit that do not have a herbal ingredient in them. They have another type of natural resource ingredient, whether that be activated charcoal, honey, or sea salt. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. And then this list on the other side are the things that are contained within this apothecary. So you have white oak bark, salt, charcoal, plantain salve, black walnut, white oak, willow. There's not very many things within this kit, but they treat a lot of things. You can see on here that things like willow are in several places. Things like honey are in several places. Black walnut is in several places, because these are multifunctional herbs that will treat lots and lots of conditions. So you've got the condition and what you can use in this apothecary kit to treat it, as well as other things that you could possibly get from nature as well that may not be in this apothecary. Okay? The next page is very similar, except it gives an actual dosage or measurement to make a batch of medicine. And when you're making medicinals, it's not like take 2 teaspoons and call me in the morning. It's I'm going to make a batch and drink it till it's gone. Maybe 8 ounces every hour or 2 hours until it's gone. But I'm going to continually take it on a regimen until it's gone. I'm not going to just take a little bit and dump the rest out or store it for later. I'm going to use it till it's gone. All right. So you've got the same conditions here listed again, with only the apothecary uses here that are within this kit. And so as an example, it says bleeding, white oak bark poultice or black walnut powder. So that tells me I can either use that in a poultice, or I can use it just as a powder, like a styptic, to put on a wound, like a shaving cut or something like that would be a styptic, whereas bleeding might be some type of a minor cut that I'm going to use a poultice combined in some type of fabric or in one of these bags as an absorbent and something that's going to be vulnerary to the wound, and also to help stop the bleeding in the black walnut powder. Going on down here, let's talk about stomach upset, possible poison. Charcoal, Pugitive, mix 2 Kupilka spoons with 4 ounces of water. So you have specific dosages here on this page that tell you how to prepare the contents of the apothecary. And this is all stuff that I just put together myself. And it goes all the way down through a lot of the things. And then the contents of the kit, it shows what contents are within this apothecary, so you know how to replenish it. It's got 2 ounces of plantain salve, 6 ounces of activated charcoal, 6 ounces of honey, 6 ounces of white oak bark, 6 ounces of willow bark, 6 ounces of black walnut hulls ground, 4 muslin tea bags, 1 Millbank type bag, 1 Kupilka gill measurement, 1 Kupilka spoon. All right, and so that's a list of what's inside the kit. So those 3 pages pretty much give you an instruction manual on how to use this kit, what to use it for, how much to use, and what different things you can use. So inside the kit we have just a few bottles. We have 1 amber plastic bottle of black walnut hull, 1 amber bottle of white oak bark, 1 amber bottle of white willow bark, 1 amber bottle of local honey, 1 amber bottle of activated charcoal, 1 tin that contains real sea salt, 1 tin that contains a plantain salve, which is just a salve that I made up ahead of time and put in here. And then I also have 1 squirt bottle that I can use if I choose to store something for a short amount of time, or if I need to make a different type of medicine to put in here, or I need something that I need a dropper application for. It's just a spare bottle within the kit. And again, all of that fits very easily inside here. So you've got some very simple components here, but what you have is you have very common components that can easily be replenished. Most of them can be obtained from the landscape or from something that you've already accomplished other than the honey and the sea salt. You'll have to buy those components or trade for those components. But the other components, and those can be substituted for other things in nature as well. I'm using them because they're the best choice for this kit, and they're easy enough replenished away from base camp when I'm back at the homestead or whatever the case may be. It's easy enough to replenish those items. But as far as the items that you're going to use the most, the bark powders, the charcoals, activated charcoal is a little different than the charcoal out of your fire. But the charcoal out of your fire will work. It's just going to be less effective, and it may take more of it to accomplish the same thing. Now, I'm not going to go through here and talk about each individual application for each one of these things, because I want you to do some research on your own to figure that out, and also go back through the Materia Medica video series and look at that. Now, what I've done is I've come up with my own Materia Medica for the Pathfinder School, and I've put this together over time, and I use this to teach with, and it's got about 30 plants and trees in it, as well as things like honey, charcoal, sea salt, different types of oils that you can use as carrier oils, and we'll talk about that in a minute as well. But I've just written a book that releases in a few months with Jason Hunt on bushcraft first aid and medicinal plants, and a lot of this information will be contained in that book. It's already on or available for pre-order on Amazon, as well as on my website at selfrelianceoutfitters.com. But a book like this that you put together yourself, whether it's stuff that you've copied off the internet or whatever the case may be, or your personal notes that you've written down, put them in here and go through them, and you'll be able to use this as a reference for lots and lots of things. And I've even got things in here myself, like my certificate from the Herbal Academy from the International School of Herbal Arts and Sciences. I've got my certificates in here from that school as well. But that's just because I use this as a teaching tool, and I let students look through this when they are at my school as well. But I have articles off the internet in here. I have hand-typed things that I've typed notes from as well from other books. And I also have direct copy-paste pictures in here of the different herbs and plants. So putting a Materia Medica together for your house or for your homestead is a good idea, and will help you supplement your way into something like this Woodsmans Apothocary. Now, let's talk real quick about another new book, because a lot of people ask me about books. I've always been a huge fan of Matthew Wood. I think his books are about the best books out there as far as herbalism goes, and they're the easiest to understand. And he has a new book out called The Herbal Repertory, and it's a very, very good book. The first portion of this book goes through a lot of the things that are in his other book about tissue states, about taste of different medicinal plants and things like that. And then it goes into things like a listing of the plants that are with their Latin names, so that you can refer back to that later. It also goes back into, there's your list of herbs. It goes into the different areas of your body that those herbs have direct affinity to in your organ systems, your blood, and things like that. And then toward the back of the book, it actually goes into specifics where you can actually look things up, like lactation and breast health. You can read about all the different herbs are listed in here that are good for that, and then specifics as far as what's going on in your body or in the person's body that you're giving these herbs to help you decide which specific herb is the best treatment. Now, this thing here would be something more for the homestead. This is not a Woodsman's Apothocary type deal, because when it comes to wise woman type medicine and true herbalism, what you're trying to do is you're trying to get as specific as you can with the condition and the treatment. And with the Woodsmans Apothocary, we are more concerned with things that are called simples. One ingredient for a specific symptom of possibly a greater problem. I have a headache. What can I do to take care of the pain? What can I do to possibly relax the muscles in my neck if I've got a tension headache? Those type of things are what I'm going to address with this. I've got bleeding I need to take care of. I've got a sprain or strain. I want to reduce the swelling. I've got poison ivy. I want to reduce the itch and the irritation. I have a rash. Those type things, an upset stomach, those type things I can easily address with a single medicinal herb or tree, with a single infusion, decoction, poultice, something like that. Whereas this type of stuff is more specific to what exactly are the symptoms of the condition and what exact herb is going to work the best for that. But this book is a very, very good book to have at your homestead, and I would recommend all of Matthew Wood's books in your library at home, and that will help you to develop, along with internet research, your personal materia medica. And then from that you can develop your Woodsman's Apothocary to be very few items but highly multifunctional in a camp environment. Again, this is not something you'd carry necessarily in a backpack for an overnight trip. That's where you're going to use what's available in nature. This is something that you would have in a longer term camp scenario as your medicine cabinet or your first aid kit. Okay folks, well, I'm Dave Canterbury with Self-Reliance Outfitters in the Pathfinder School, and I just wanted to quickly touch base on this Woodsman's Apothecary. I know that video is probably a little bit drawn out, but there's a lot of good information in there, and I learn new things every day while I'm doing research to write the books that I write, to write the articles that I write, to do the videos that I do. I learn something new just about every day, and one of the things that I learned from this book, actually, that I had not read before, I have read and heard that traditionally skunk fat, rendered skunk fat, and I'm not going to say tallow because too many people get hung up on semantics and say, oh, tallow only comes from beef, and when you did a raccoon fat rendering video you called it tallow, and it's not tallow, it's fat. Well, you know what, that's all semantics, because tallow is also defined as a fatty substance, or any other fatty substance can be slangily called tallow. So I'm not going to call it tallow, I'm going to call it skunk fat. But skunk oil that's rendered from that fat, not from the glands, is a very good medicinal carrier oil. And I've heard that traditionally they used it a lot on areas of the chest for congestion and colds. And I think that the reason for that, from the research that I've recently found in Matthew Wood's new book, is that skunk fat, or skunk oil rendered from skunk fat, is the most skin-soluble oil that there is, even better than emu oil. So the fact that it soaks into the skin very, very quickly makes it a good carrier oil when mixed with some other type of herb that may have some type of mentholatum or camphor in it that helps to cool you down and open up your lungs and things like that when you breathe it in. A lot of that has to do with, breathing in the essential, or the essence of those oils and things like that, and aromatherapy and those type of things. But the fact that skunk fat oil is so good as a carrier oil is because it's so soluble into the skin. So that's something that I learned that was new, and I thought it was very interesting. And that's why I tell people, never stop learning. Continue to research, because I learn something new every single day. And you don't make this stuff up in your head. You learn it from somewhere. Everybody learns something from somewhere. And me being able to learn it and pass it on to you is just a bonus. But you learning something and passing it on to me is a bonus as well. So comments and things like that in my YouTube videos, and people send me emails and things like that, and I learn something new just about every day from that as well. And again, I say never stop learning. I appreciate you guys joining me for today's video. I appreciate your views, and I appreciate your support. I thank you for everything you do for our school, for our family, for our business, for all of our sponsors, instructors, affiliates, and friends, and I'll be back with another video as soon as I can. Thanks, guys.